API testing is a critical skill in the software development lifecycle, ensuring that applications communicate effectively. In this video, we will explore the top 25 interview questions related to API testing, providing insights to help you prepare. You'll gain a comprehensive understanding of various concepts, techniques, and best practices in API testing. Each question is paired with detailed answers, equipping you with the knowledge to excel in your next interview. 1. What is an API and what is its purpose? An API, or Application Programming Interface, is a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate with each other. Its primary purpose is to enable integration between different systems, allowing them to share data and functionalities seamlessly. APIs serve as intermediaries that define the methods and data formats applications must use to request and exchange information. They are crucial for building scalable and modular applications, improving development speed, and enhancing user experiences by allowing diverse services to interact effectively. 2. What are the main differences between API testing and UI testing? API testing focuses on evaluating the functionality, reliability, and security of application programming interfaces, APIs, directly. It assesses how well APIs communicate with each other and handle requests and responses. In contrast, UI testing involves testing the user interface of an application to ensure it is visually appealing and user-friendly. While API testing is often automated and can be executed without a graphical interface, UI testing typically involves manual checks or automated scripts interacting with the application's GUI. Each type of testing plays a crucial role in ensuring software quality but targets different aspects of the application. 3. What are some common types of API testing? API testing encompasses various types designed to validate functionality, reliability, performance, and security. Commonly used types include functional testing. Ensures API endpoints work as expected by validating the responses against defined specifications. Load testing. Assesses how well an API performs under heavy load or high traffic, helping identify bottlenecks. Security testing. Evaluates the API's defenses against potential threats and vulnerabilities, ensuring data integrity and authentication. Performance testing. Measures response times and overall speed of the API to ensure it meets performance benchmarks. Validation testing. Confirms that the API returns accurate data and adheres to defined formats and schemas. 4. Explain the difference between REST and SOAP APIs. REST, Representational State Transfer, and SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol, are two distinct architectural styles for web services. REST is an architectural style that uses standard HTTP methods and is typically more lightweight, making it easier to use and understand. It exchanges data in various formats, primarily JSON or XML. SOAP, on the other hand, is a protocol that uses XML exclusively for message formatting and relies on strict standards for security and transactions. SOAP services are generally more complex, requiring a formal contract, WSDL, between client and server, while REST APIs are more flexible and can be consumed easily without strict contracts. 5. What are the main HTTP methods used in RESTful APIs? The main HTTP methods used in RESTful APIs include GET, POST, PUT, DELETE, PATCH, and OPTIONS. GET retrieves data from the server without modifying it. POST sends data to the server to create a new resource. PUT updates an existing resource with new data. DELETE removes a resource from the server. PATCH applies partial modifications to a resource. OPTIONS requests information about the communication options available for a specific resource. Each method serves a specific purpose and helps define the actions that can be performed on resources in the API. Understanding these methods is essential for effective API design and usage. 6. What is API documentation and why is it important? API documentation is a comprehensive guide that explains how an API works, including its endpoints, request and response formats, authentication methods, and error codes. It is essential for developers as it serves as a reference point when integrating with an API. Good documentation facilitates faster development, reduces errors, and enhances collaboration among teams. It helps users understand how to use the API effectively, which can lead to increased adoption and satisfaction. Clear documentation is also crucial for maintenance and future development, ensuring that changes are well communicated. 7. What tools do you use for API testing? When performing API testing, several tools can be utilized to streamline the process. Postman is widely used for its user-friendly interface, allowing for easy request creation and testing. SOAP-UI is another popular choice, particularly for SOAP APIs, offering advanced testing features. For automated testing, tools like Rest Assured and JMeter are effective, enabling the creation of complex test scenarios. Additionally, API testing frameworks such as Karate and Pact can be beneficial for behavior-driven development and contract testing. Choosing the right tools depends on the specific requirements of the project and the team's familiarity with the tools. 8. Explain the concept of API authentication and authorization. API authentication and authorization are critical elements in securing APIs. Authentication verifies the identity of a user or application, typically through methods such as API keys, OAuth tokens, or username, password combinations. Once the identity is confirmed, authorization determines what resources or actions the authenticated user or application is allowed to access. This can involve roles and permissions assigned to users, ensuring that only those with the right credentials can perform specific actions on the API. Implementing robust authentication and authorization processes helps protect sensitive data and maintain the integrity of the API. 9. What is JSON and XML? How are they used in APIs? JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, and XML, Extensible Markup Language, are both formats used for structuring data in APIs. JSON is lightweight, easy to read, and primarily used in web applications for data exchange. It utilizes key value pairs and is supported natively by JavaScript, making it ideal for RESTful APIs. XML, on the other hand, is more verbose and provides a more rigid structure, which can be useful for complex data structures. APIs use these formats to serialize and deserialize data when communicating between clients and servers, allowing for efficient data transfer and interoperability. 10. What are API endpoints and how do you test them? API endpoints are specific URLs that allow access to resources or services within an API. They define where API requests are sent and are often tied to specific functions such as retrieving data, submitting forms, or performing actions. To test API endpoints, you typically send requests using tools like Postman or curl, verifying that the responses match expected results. This includes checking status codes, response times, and data integrity. It's essential to test various scenarios, including valid and invalid inputs, to ensure the endpoint behaves correctly under different conditions. 11. How do you verify the response codes in API testing? To verify response codes in API testing, start by sending requests to the API endpoints and capture the response. Each response comes with an HTTP status code that indicates the result of the request. Use assertions to check if the returned status code matches the expected value. Common codes include 200 for success, 404 for not found, and 500 for server errors. Testing should include both valid and invalid requests to ensure the API behaves as expected under different conditions. Logging the responses can also help in analyzing the results and identifying issues. 12. What is API versioning and why is it important? API versioning refers to the practice of managing changes to an API over time while maintaining compatibility with existing clients. It allows developers to introduce new features, improve performance, or fix bugs without disrupting the functionality for users relying on previous versions. Versioning can be implemented via URL paths, query parameters, or HTTP headers. This practice is crucial as it helps prevent breaking changes that could lead to client-side errors, ensures smoother transitions for users, and provides a clear upgrade path for developers to follow when making updates. 13. Explain the concept of API rate limiting. API rate limiting is a technique used to control the amount of incoming or outgoing traffic to or from a network. It restricts the number of API calls that can be made by a user or application over a specified period, often measured in requests per second or minute. This mechanism helps prevent abuse, ensures fair usage, and protects the system from overload. By implementing rate limiting, service providers can maintain performance and reliability, manage server load, and enhance security. Different strategies, like token bucket or leaky bucket, can be employed to enforce these limits effectively. 14. How do you perform security testing on APIs? Security testing on APIs involves several key practices. Start with identifying potential vulnerabilities using tools like OWASP-ZAP or Burp Suite. Assess authentication mechanisms to ensure they are robust against common attacks. Implement penetration testing to exploit vulnerabilities and analyze the API's response. Validate data input to prevent injection attacks, such as SQL or XML injections. Additionally, ensure that sensitive data is encrypted both in transit and at rest. Regularly update and patch the API to protect against newly discovered threats. Testing should be an ongoing process integrated into the development lifecycle. 15. What is API mocking and when would you use it? API mocking is the process of simulating the behavior of an API by creating a mock version of it. This allows developers and testers to work with a fake API that mimics the real one, providing predefined responses to requests. API mocking is useful during the development phase when the actual API may not be complete or available. It enables front-end and back-end teams to work in parallel, facilitating testing and development without waiting for the real API. It can also help to isolate components during testing and improve the speed of integration tests by eliminating dependencies on external services. 16. How do you handle API dependencies in your tests? When handling API dependencies in tests, it's essential to isolate the unit being tested from external systems. This can be achieved through the use of mocking and stubbing techniques, which simulate the behavior of dependent APIs. By creating mocks for these dependencies, you can control their responses and ensure consistent testing conditions. Additionally, using dependency injection helps manage dependencies effectively. It's important to maintain clear documentation of these dependencies to facilitate updates and troubleshooting. Implementing automated tests that can run independently of external services contributes to a more robust testing process. 17. What is contract testing in the context of APIs? Contract testing ensures that the interactions between different services or components within an application adhere to predefined agreements or contracts. In the context of APIs, this means verifying that the API meets the expectations of both the consumer, client, and provider, server. The contract typically includes the structure of requests and responses, along with data types and constraints. This form of testing can catch integration issues early by validating that changes in one service do not break the expected behavior of another, thereby promoting smoother deployments and greater reliability across services. 18. How do you test API performance and scalability? Testing API performance and scalability involves several key practices. First, use load testing tools like JMeter or Gatling to simulate multiple users and measure response times under different loads. Establish performance benchmarks and ensure the API meets them. Monitor resource usage, like CPU and memory, during tests to identify bottlenecks. Implement stress testing to determine how much load the API can handle before failing. Additionally, conduct endurance testing to assess performance over extended periods. Collect metrics such as throughput and latency for analysis. Lastly, ensure the API scales appropriately by testing with increased data volumes or concurrent requests. 19. What are some common challenges in API testing? API testing can present several challenges that testers must navigate. One significant challenge is handling the complexity of APIs, which often have numerous endpoints and varied response formats. Additionally, ensuring proper authentication and authorization can complicate testing, especially when dealing with different user roles. Another challenge is managing dependencies on other services or databases, which may not be available during testing. Test data setup and maintenance can also be cumbersome, requiring careful planning to ensure consistency. Finally, performance testing is tricky, as it necessitates simulating multiple users and load conditions effectively. 20. How do you validate the schema of API responses? Validating the schema of API responses involves checking if the structure of the response matches the predefined schema, typically described in formats like JSON schema or XML schema. This process ensures that the response contains the expected fields, types, and formats. Tools such as Postman, Schematron, or custom validation scripts can be utilized. During testing, you can extract the response data and compare it against the schema definition. Any discrepancies, such as missing fields or data type mismatches, should be reported as issues to maintain the integrity of the API. 21. What is API virtualization? API virtualization is a technique that allows developers and testers to simulate the behavior of APIs that are not yet available or are difficult to access. This process involves creating a mock version of the API, enabling teams to test their applications without relying on actual API endpoints. By using virtualized APIs, teams can mimic responses, including various scenarios such as error states, delays, or specific data outputs. This helps in identifying issues early in the development cycle, reducing dependencies on external services, and accelerating development and testing processes. 22. Explain the concept of idempotency in APIs. Idempotency in APIs refers to the property where a request can be made multiple times without changing the result beyond the initial application. In practice, this means that if an API endpoint is designed to be idempotent, calling it with the same parameters multiple times will not lead to different outcomes after the first call. For example, an HTTP PUT request for updating a resource should yield the same state regardless of how many times it is invoked. This concept is crucial for ensuring reliability in distributed systems, as it helps in handling network failures and redundant requests without adverse effects. 23. How do you test error handling in APIs? Testing error handling in APIs involves sending requests that are designed to trigger errors, ensuring that the API responds correctly. Start by identifying potential error scenarios, such as invalid input, unauthorized access, or resource not found. Send requests with these conditions and verify the response status codes, error messages, and response body format. Ensure that the API returns appropriate HTTP status codes, such as 400 for bad requests or 404 for not found. Additionally, check that error messages are informative and consistent, helping clients understand what went wrong. 24. What is the difference between black box and white box testing for APIs? Black box testing focuses on the functionality of the API without any knowledge of its internal workings. Testers validate the output by providing various inputs and checking if the API behaves as expected. In contrast, white box testing involves understanding the internal structure of the API. Testers examine the code, logic, and paths within the application to identify vulnerabilities and ensure that all paths are adequately tested. Each method serves distinct purposes. Black box testing is user-centric, while white box testing emphasizes code quality and security. Both approaches are crucial for comprehensive API testing. 25. How do you ensure test data consistency across different API test cases? Ensuring test data consistency across different API test cases involves several strategies. First, establish a centralized test data repository, allowing all test cases to access the same dataset. Use data seeding to create controlled environments before tests run, ensuring that they start with known, consistent data. Implement fixtures to set up and tear down data before and after tests. Additionally, automate data validation checks to confirm that the expected data is present and accurate. Regularly review and update the test data to align with any changes in the API specifications or requirements. In this video, we explored the top 25 API testing interview questions and answers that can help you prepare for your next job interview. Understanding these concepts can significantly enhance your confidence and performance during the interview process. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced tester, having a solid grasp of API testing fundamentals is essential in today's tech landscape. If you found this content helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more insightful videos on software testing and quality assurance topics. Your support helps us create more valuable content for you. Thank you for watching.